Hello and welcome to another episode of Nation News Touchline Report. I'm your host, Anmar Goodridge-Boyce, and this is sponsored by Quartz. Ready cash, ready when you are. We've made a substitution in the studio. Nick is out and I'm in as your host for this episode. And joining me in the studio, we have former Barbados national captain and Wigan Athletic defender and FA Cup 2013 winner, Mr. Emmerson Boyce, and next to him I have Mr. Renaldo Pee-wee Gilkes, football expert and coach. Today we're here to discuss the Concacaf Gold Cup. As you know, Barbados traveled to Florida to take on Bermuda in their first game. I'm going to start with Pee-wee, Renaldo Gilkes. Let's talk about the FIFA World Cup qualifying campaign. So we're going to start with a bit of a recap. What are your thoughts on the Trident's performance in that campaign?
Oh yeah, thanks for having me again, Anmar, and thanks for the selection panel for selecting. I think it was a worthy sub. I think Nick would have served his time. And welcome to Emmerson. It's a pleasure to be here sitting next to him. Looking at the World Cup qualifiers, I actually did an article looking back a couple of weeks ago, and I would say I would have given it a 5 out of 10. Yeah. I tried to play on defense based on the preparation that we had. Obviously, coming out of lockdown for such a long period, I think the first game against Panama, where we were able to come out with a 1-0, well, I shouldn't say able to come out, but we were only defeated 1-0. I think the guys showed a lot of industry and fortitude, a lot of resilience. Coming forward now to the qualifiers in June, when you would have been in the Dominican Republic, I believe that we could have gotten away with it. We should have came away with 6 points, to be honest. When we look at the game, we took the lead in both of those matches, and we played some pretty attractive football, especially in the first game against the Dominican Republic. So looking back at those particular games, we didn't qualify, obviously because of the format, but I think that we gave a pretty good showing. However, I think we could have been better in terms of, one, converting a lot more of the opportunities that were presented, and then two, protecting the lead. I'm sure we're going to get to that later on in the show, but preserving your lead is always important. It comes down to it gives you a bit of confidence. It is a psychological feather in your cap, and I'm sure Emmerson will tell you this. The more successful results you have, the more you grow in confidence, and that's what we need, particularly going into these. I say next two, because I expect us to be Bermuda, and then obviously we have to face the winner between Haiti and St. Vincent, but we would have definitely be going into these games with a lot more confidence if we had came away with 6 points instead of 2 in those latter matches.
1 win, 2 draws, and a loss, Emmerson. How do you put that into perspective, our FIFA World Cup campaign? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, look on the World Cup campaign. It's work in progress. Obviously, the Panama result wasn't ideal, but the performance was very well. Yeah. But as the tournament's gone on, the competition's gone on, the performance is getting better and better and getting stronger. I think the last couple of games, I don't think there was that full squad. A lot of the foreign-based players couldn't come over. But obviously they're here this time around for the Gold Cup. So yeah, I think look at the performance-wise, it's been good. Couldn't get the results that they needed, but it's very much a work in progress.
How difficult is it playing in the FIFA World Cup qualifiers? I know you would have played for Barbados in this competition. Just tell us a little bit about how hard is the competition at that level?
Yeah, very hard. You're testing yourself against other countries, different culture, different style of play. But I was speaking to the boys a couple of days ago before they left, and I said they've got a great opportunity now to make a big impact and put Barbados on the map. When I played, we didn't have these opportunities. Randy Harris is done magnificent in terms of bringing the players from abroad to the squad, and he's done really, really well. In my opinion, I watched him train. His philosophy is very much he wants to attack. So hopefully we'll see that side of it coming into the Gold Cup. But the World Cup campaign was, I think they will come out a bit disappointed. They didn't progress even more, but the performance has been really, really well. But they couldn't get the results when they needed it.
And I think those, World Cup qualifier matches served us well. You know, they were almost like, if you want to consider them preparation matches or dress rehearsals going into what we'll consider a more likely avenue for us to proceed. You know, we've never qualified for a major tournament, and here we are just 2 victories away from attaining such. So I believe those 4 matches, and knowing Coach Lahapi, each of those matches should have served as a lesson, not just for him, but the players in particular, because the team is very young. You know, I wouldn't say inexperienced, because you had a number of players who would have actually played with Emmerson. You know, you have Hayden Holligan, Rashad Jules, Mario Williams, Jomar Harris. These guys are seasoned, despite not even being 30 years old yet. So I believe that those 4 matches would have served us well in terms of preparation going into these next 2 matches.
Emmerson, you mentioned the disappointment from the boys, obviously not progressing to the next round, but I was there on hand and I could also see it. PB, I want to ask you this question, though. What do you think is the biggest lesson that the Tridents would have learned from that FIFA campaign?
There's so many to just pick up one, but the importance of having the lead or securing the lead. I mean, we see it now in international football and European football. It's playing currently. The majority of the team that starts in front usually stays in front. And I just think that the biggest lesson will be a psychological one in terms of not just going after the other goal, but also protecting what you have. So I believe that would be the biggest lesson. Once you get in front, to stay in front.
And Emmerson, what do you think the boys could have done a bit differently?
Game management. I think that's the biggest thing. When they were in front, how can they keep that lead? It goes down to concentration, but again, experience. As he said, there's a lot of young players in that squad at the moment, and it's a new thing for them. So a lot of it's the game management. I'm sure they'll learn from, I wouldn't say mistakes, I say the experience from before in the other games, and hopefully they can take it forward to the next campaign now and learn from what they experienced in the World Cup qualifiers.
Like we mentioned earlier in the show, our Nick Maitland is in Florida, and we're just going to hear a report from him on the first training session.
Hello, Anmar, and hello, fellas, and a special greeting to you, Emmerson. Thank you for joining us on Touchline Report. We know it's not often that you get subbed in, because as a centre-back, you usually started all the games and finished them as well. But thanks for being a nice substitute for us for this episode. Now, what update can I give you on the national team? The team is pretty much settled in Fort Lauderdale. They've trained already. They've had meals together already, and the camaraderie is indeed building. I spoke to Emil Saimovici on Sunday when the first batch of players departed the island, and he was very excited for the games, and he was determined, he said, to spend the 4th of July in the United States. So that means that they are all intent on defeating Bermuda on Friday, and that's July 2nd, and obviously going on to face either Haiti or St. Vincent and the Grenadines on July 6th. Now, there's a lot of attacking talent in the team. 9 attackers, as we said, going to Fort Lauderdale. So there's going to be a selection headache for Coach Russell Latipi, but he always says he welcomes the headache. So very, very top-heavy team for the Tridents, but we expect goals. And with the energy in the team, with the youth in the team, and the experience as well, I think that the Tridents will indeed make us proud. And it's just for them to prepare well and, of course, get some rest in between and mentally prepare themselves to take on Bermuda. Not much news coming out of Bermuda as yet, but I think that they have called upon the services of their best players as well for this tournament. So the Tridents play Bermuda on Friday, July 2nd at 7 p.m. And if we're successful, we will go on to play either Haiti or St. Vincent and the Grenadines on July 6th. So we're hoping that the Tridents can be successful in both those games and move on to play in Group B alongside the United States, Canada, and Martinique. So it's going to be a hard task for the Tridents, of course, but these guys are prepared. And the new signings, the new players in Curtis Jemmett Hudson, Ryan Trotman, Dwayne Green, I think that they will, of course, Nick Blackman returning as well. They will certainly fortify the Tridents, and we have all excitement ahead of that first game on Friday. So this is Nick Maitland reporting for Nation News in Fort Lauderdale.
Thank you very much, Nick. We'll be back with Touchline Report. Son,
You need to get off the phone sometimes and read the Nation newspaper so you will know what's happening in Barbados and the rest of the world. A good thing just read that the supermarket's open, because you eat every single day in the house like a pig. Son, come off that phone. I bet you do not even know that the government is offering us a Barbados Economic Stabilization Program, which is a 5-part, $2.3 billion economic plan to support vulnerable households, businesses, and to help we grow our own food. Wait, how you know that? Because I'm a digital subscriber to the Nation's website, so I will get news hot off the press. Oh, I see. I would like to subscribe digitally too. But sir, you know I like to read my Nation newspaper, man. Dad, you got choose. You can buy your newspaper and you can also subscribe.
Welcome back to Nation News Touchline Report, sponsored by Quartz. Ready cash, ready when you are. Head coach of the Barbados senior national football team, Russell Lauderdale, talked about having a selection headache. He selected 24 players for the Concacaf Gold Cup match versus the Bermuda. That's our first game. And Pee-wee, I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about the team selection. What are your thoughts on the team that Mr. Lauderdale has selected for this first game? I think he's gone a bit with a top-heavy team, naming several attackers in his squad.
I mean, there are two things which stand out. You just mentioned one. You know, we have several attackers, predominantly, and more so, welcomely, Nick is back. Nick Blackman. You know, he's been our prolific scorer during the Nations League, along with Alan Hope. I think having them back in the squad, you saw when we had the Nations League in Barbados how they combined so well. I could identify the quality amongst them. We would have brought on Curtis Hudson.
Yeah.
He has looked busy during practice. He looked like a player that could cause problems either as an attacking midfielder or a centre forward. And obviously Trotman is back. Ryan Trotman. He showed what he can do. He missed the last World Cup qualifier, but I enjoyed watching him in the first phase when he played against Anguilla. So we have these players, you know, these quality of international players. I understand that young Dwayne Green is a good prospect as well. I haven't seen him, but he has some quality.
Yeah, he plays at left back.
Yeah, and I heard some of the players indicating how technical he is and how smart he is. So maybe, you know, Andrea Applewhite did a pretty good job in the last assignment. So maybe that's a good headache to have. Maybe you could shift Green in a more central or more advanced position. Who knows? But in addition to those quality players we brought in offensively, there's also a player who has been omitted, or a player who's not particularly going on this tour. And we know that person is the golden boy of Barbados football. Teenage sensation, Thierry Gill, who plays in the Hungarian Premier League. I don't know if Emmerson would have seen him play as yet, but he's a very exciting player, one that Barbadians hold very dearly to their hearts, because he's a player we've seen come up through primary school, well, at the St. Bartholomew School, coming up through St. Mary's Pro Shahs, and then seeing him play in the youth national team. So those are two, I would say, significant talking points. Thierry didn't play in the final game against Dominica, but from what I saw in the game he came on
versus
against Dominican Republic, his pace is definitely an asset. And based on what I would have seen from Coach Lappy's tactics, now that you have a central potent figure like Nick Blackman, Thierry's one-on-one ability and pace, getting down the line and whipping those balls in, you having the height, and as I said, the quality of Nick Blackman coming on to those, who knows? However, I believe the players who have been selected are capable or competent enough to do the job. I'm still a bit, I would say, I would have a bit of a reservation with regards to the right back. To be honest, I think Carl Hickson is probably our best option right now. I know we've tried Rashad Smith there as well. However, I think Carl is a bit more technical and a bit more experienced after playing for the last 4 years in college. And I would have worked personally with Carl a couple of times. So in terms of selection, I do agree. It was very top heavy, but you can imagine what it is. This is knockout football. You need goals to win.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you this question, Pee-wee. A starting 11. Who do you think the coach will go with for that first game versus the Bermuda? Like you mentioned, Ryan Trotman is there. There's also the return of the captain, Rashad Jules. He also named Akil Apowit, all of these attacking players. I'm going to put you on the spot, Pee-wee. Name your starting 11 for the first game.
Well, hopefully this shows after the team has been selected, because of course I've been seeing it before. He might decide not to, but Liam Bradford back in goal for me. I think he's earning the spot. It's a bit of a close one with Primus. Ankle injury is not an easy one, because it's not one that. Let me say, it's not one that you can really quote unquote predict, because he made a brilliant save. I just fell awkwardly on it. So I would say Liam, Pierce and Williams again. For me, Carl Hinkson, Andrew Applewhite. I'm going to jump you with my number 6. Dwayne Green.
Wow.
Yeah, Dwayne Green.
Interesting.
Then I will go with Hayden and Omani, based on the team I have. And across the top, Nick Hallam Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no room for the national captain.
He worked his way back in. He too is coming back from an ankle injury as well. So, it was serving some good to, see how the pace of the game goes, see how the quality of the game goes. But once you have those quality players, Emmerson could tell you, bring those guys back. These guys were now playing the entire season. They've shown their quality. You got to play them.
Okay. Tactics and strategies. Emmerson, you played at the highest level. You would have played knockout football. This is a knockout competition. You lose, you go, you win, you advance. What do you think would be the tactic and strategy for Mr. Ladapi going ahead to this game?
I think what he said, he's very top heavy, so he's shown his intentions already. I think they're going to go out attack. It's the only way you can play really in this sort of competition, trying to outscore the other opposition. So as you say, I think a lot of the problems for Barbados at the moment is conceding late goals. So maybe he's gone for the idea of trying to outscore them and get the gap, so they don't have to rely on defending in the late stage of the game.
So get like a 3-0, and then if worst case,
right,
we do concede.
He's got the firepower there to especially against the Bermuda. It's going to be a game they will probably feel a bit comfortable going into. Obviously, it's going to be a difficult game, but I think the selection that he's done with the squad, I think is for me, it's gone for a very offensive team.
Okay. And Pee-wee, you mentioned earlier Dwayne Green. I'm going to ask you now a bit about the defense. Who do you think would be key in terms of defending versus Bermuda?
From what I would have seen and done my research most recently, because I'm not going to lie, I've not been following Bermudan football. However, it's notable to mention that they were in the last Gold Cup, Concacaf Gold Cup, so they have some experience, and along with the same coach, a couple of players would have returned. However, when I look at the roster, it's not a flattering one. When I look at quality for quality, player by player, we should, but football's a funny game. We should advance from this one. Defensively, if we could protect those wide areas and not expose our wing backs to 1v1 situations, I think that would be ideal. However, that will rely a lot on. Coach Lappy has played 4-3-3 a lot, so those wide forwards, if they could protect the ball from going into the opponent's wide players and just show them into our compact midfield, you may want to put Green. Bearing from what I have heard and seen, he has good technical ability, meaning that he can receive the ball and help us to build the ball up. He seems to be pretty disciplined in his positioning when he was playing as a fullback. And as a defender, you already have that defensive instinct. And if you're technical enough with a defensive instinct, you could play as a number 6.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pee-wee. When we return on Nation News Touchline Report, we're going to talk predictions and Ladapi's record. Stay tuned.
Son, you need to get off the phone sometimes and read the Nation newspaper so you will know what's happening in Barbados and the rest of the world. A good thing just read that the supermarket's open, because you eat every single day in the house like a pig. Son, come off that phone. I bet you do not even know that the government is offering us a Barbados Economic Stabilization Program, which is a 5-part, $2.3 billion economic plan to support vulnerable households, businesses, and to help we grow our own food. Wait, how you know that? Because I'm a digital subscriber to the Nation's website, so I will get news hot off the press. Oh, I see. I would like to subscribe digitally too. But sir, you know I like to read my Nation newspaper, man. Dad, you got shoes? You can buy your newspaper and you can also subscribe.
Welcome back to Nation News Touchline Report, sponsored by Quartz. Ready cash, ready when you are. This is the final segment of the show, and before we go, let's talk a bit about Coach Ladapi's record. 5 wins, 5 defeats, 2 draws. I'm going to start with UPB.
Obviously, I don't know. I think 2 of those defeats were to Canada.
Yeah.
I would say relatively expected ones because those games came up, relatively surprisingly. I think we lost both of those games 4-1. I think the defeat which stood out for me most was the one to St. Martin. Primarily on the premise that we should beat St. Martin. I mean, no disrespect to them or no disrespect to because it's international football, but the momentum that we were carrying at that time, we did lose away from home. However, it was very good to see that the guys rebounded back at home, and I believe that was the game that Thierry scored in, the free kick. Looking at the record, it is one, well, it's a fair one, I think, to say the least, because you have 5 wins and 5 defeats. You said, and 2 draws, right? I mean, the last 2 draws that we encountered. I believe that the real test hasn't really started yet for Coach Ladapi. Maybe going to League B because we qualified from League C, which we ought to. We should have. I don't think we should have been there in the first place, to be honest. But now we're going into League B, where we have a lot more teams around, I would say, our weight level. Our boxing weight, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So I think going into League B, the Concacaf Nations League, will be the real test for us. I still think that we, as a public, we need to know what the general objectives are so we can have a fair assessment. And I said this last time I was on the show, if you're going to assess and say something's been a failure or success, we have to identify some variables and some measurable variables so we can then deem, hey, did Coach Ladapi do a good job? He didn't do a good job? I think those are things that need to be announced so that you can have some clarity and some fairness attached to when we have discussions like these regarding results and performances, because again, a lot of people utilize statistics, but they don't always paint a fair picture.
Okay, there's definitely been a change since Mr. Ladapi took over as the head coach. I'm going to ask you this question, Emmerson. In terms of this tournament, the Concacaf Gold Cup, what do you think it means to him as the head coach?
Yeah, I think it's got to a stage now where his philosophy, his style of play, changing the culture of the team to how he wants to play. Going into the Gold Cup now, it should be more or less his team, his way of playing. So I think he'll go into the campaign quite confident. As he said, you look at his squad he's picked, very flair, very top heavy in terms of attack. So again, he's stating his intentions straight away. But yeah, I think like most coaches, it's always going to take time to build. Especially as a philosophy, probably completely different to the former manager. So I'll say I've seen them a couple of times. They play some good football, keep the ball possession based, and then they try and spring. And obviously they brought the players now from abroad, a bit more quality. So they should get the goals that he's been craving for in the last couple of campaigns. So it'll be interesting.
What would you say is the difference between the way the team played when you were around as opposed to the way they play now?
The biggest thing, as I spoke to the players the other day, is they're on the front foot now.
Yeah.
When I used to play, we used to be defensive and try and nick a win and hope to win. But now I think it's got a squad together where on paper is very strong. It's got players that can come back into the team who have been injured, and again that's going to give them a bit more experience, a bit more quality. And it's good to look at the bench. We don't know the squad yet, or don't know the team, shall I say? But we've got a pretty decent squad there, and I feel like it's going to be a good campaign, and I think he'll be looking forward to it and getting some good results.
Emmerson, when you played, you came in from Wigan Athletic. How important are the overseas-based players to this squad?
Massive. I had the role to try and change the mindset, should we say, from a professional point of view and a winning mentality. So, as I said, when I was playing, it was very much defensive and hoping for the win, where I think he's got enough quality in the squad now, where they're going for the win, not hoping, and they're going for the Bermuda game, and they're looking forward to the next round. Obviously, football, we can't take nothing for granted, but that should be the mindset in winning this game and progressing. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in this team selection.
That's a key question you asked him because we have 6 foreign-based players in the squad. And
I think it's probably the most.
Yeah, the most we have at any time.
Any
So
given
as I
time.
said, when you look at it, you look at it in 2 ways. That they can boost the quality of the team. How about because they don't have a lot of time? What about the chemistry and meshing them with those local players?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think, when I used to come up, I think to bring people up to my level. That was my aim when I used to play and stuff like that. The fact that they've got 5 or 6 at a professional level, it should have a positive impact into the group, and should be and especially as I say, it's a young team that's there now, so they should be wanting to learn, should be asking the questions, they should be looking at them and saying how they're receiving the ball and how they're playing, how they're shooting. I'm thinking I should be able to do that. So I feel the quality that's come from abroad is very good, and it should boost the team and it should be a good showing.
Okay, so obviously I have Emmerson, who was an overseas-based player, and PB, you are a local player. I'm going to ask you this question. If I'm a local player, would I be probably scared that all of these overseas-based players are coming in for my position? Or is it good for the team?
Personally for me, I would have been that player that Emmerson just described, like always asking questions, always trying to observe and see what they're doing differently to what I do.
Yeah.
I think it's a good opportunity for the younger players, and I always speak about the younger players because, as you know, I would have had a hand in a number of them who are now in the squad. For them to just rub shoulders and identify what do they need to do to get to that level, to play abroad, to even be a professional. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be playing in the English Premier League, but just how you could bring that attitude and that personality into the local front. So to be honest, I wouldn't say that they should be scared, they should be encouraged, to be rubbing shoulders here. Like me, I hear rubbing shoulders with the FA Cup winner.
Yeah, but it's true. It's how can you challenge yourself? Yeah. And that's the mentality that they should be going into the game with. Train harder. Everything they got to do now is training harder and putting themselves to a position where the coach can't leave them out, whether you play from abroad or not.
Okay. I think it is now time where everyone will want to know the predictions. Pee-wee, I'm going to start with you. Barbados versus Bermuda in Florida, July 2nd is the date of the game. What's your prediction?
3-1. Yeah, 3-1. I still am not, I'll be glad for a 3-0 or a 2-0. I'm still not totally sure or convinced that we are able to, have that clean, or take that clean sheet, so to speak. However, I am very impressed and pleased about the firepower that we have. As you know, I'm a big fan of Nick Blackman. I got Nick to bag one at least. So I'll say 3-1.
Okay, who are your other goal scorers?
I would say Nick, Reese Stephen, and might be Hallam. But Nick for sure.
Okay. What about you, Emmerson?
I was going to say 3-1, but he's taken it already. I'll go 2-0 then.
Okay.
2-0. Yeah,
okay.
2-0, a positive result. A lot of attacking football.
Okay, and I'm going to go 2-1 Barbados. I think it's going to be Ryan Trotman and Nick Blackman. I'll go with those two as my goal scorers. Thank you so much for being here, Renaldo, PB Gilkes, and you, of course, Mr. Emmerson Boyce. We'll be hoping to have you again, Emmerson, with us. I'm not sure how long you'll be around, but I know you're doing some fantastic work with the Barbados women's team.
Yeah, definitely. I hope to be back. I'll leave in just over a week's time. So, yeah, hopefully I'll be back in the studio. The women's football program that we're trying to do at the moment, trying to raise participation in the female game. Got a great backing from the BFA. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Got some great talent, and hopefully they can follow in the footsteps of the men in terms of qualifying for a major tournament.
And definitely, Emmerson, I hope that the next time you are joining us here, that we can be celebrating a victory for Barbados. This has been the Nation News Touchline Report, sponsored by Quartz. Ready cash, ready when you are.